Feldheim will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start this morning's meeting with a moment of silence to honor the memory of Dick Schooley, janitor at the museum for over 30 years, passed away last week. Thank you. This funeral is this afternoon at 2 o'clock. All right, first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda.
Move. Second.
Motion by Gage, second by Weiss. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, opportunity for public comments. Anyone who wish to address the commission this morning on any matter that isn't on the agenda? In person, out there online, or on the phone? Hearing and seeing none, we will move on. First up, Kelly Weaver and Mark Nelson, Grow, South Dakota update. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning.
Morning.
We
Morning,
all
Mark.
this fine summer hot days. Aren't you glad you're meeting this morning?
Yes.
We got handouts.
Got handouts, and then this is for Lynn, some materials to hang up if you have availability or space. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So just as a part of our annual update to the county of the services of Grow, South Dakota, and the services that have been provided to Brown County residents for the past year, and also to submit the budget request for 2024, I guess. We have, that is our purpose for being in front of you today. So I'm going to let Mark start off with talking about some of the programs.
Yeah, so on your sheet you can see that over $10.5 million was invested through Grow South Dakota programs. It was 1,085 served. First, starting just at the top with the emergency assistance program. So if you do qualify income-wise, and if you do get behind on your rent, mortgage payment, a utility payment, we do have funds to help assist with getting caught back up. A new program this year that was never available before was with water. Before, if you were behind with water, that was an ineligible purpose under emergency assistance, and then this year with the special federal allocations, water was on that as well. We also do help sell the governor's homes, and more of the outlining area. Obviously, Happy does that as well, more in town, but we did sell 3 in here in the Brown County area. Home improvement program, so that is some funds that can help improve a property. You do have to qualify income-wise for that program, and it has to be a non-cosmetic item. So in other words, maybe it's a roof, maybe it's siding, just to make sure the home doesn't get dilapidated, items like that. If it also helps with like an emergency, like if you are handicapped and your shower is not handicap accessible, some of those funds can be used for that. Usually it goes within that $5,000 to $10,000 grant range. We do put a mortgage on there, and that does get forgiven if you stay in the home for 5 years. Because the purpose of the program is to keep you in your home, to keep it efficient, etc. We have 299 active housing lending programs. We do direct lending. It's usually more advantageous to go to the bank, but maybe your credit score isn't quite as high, maybe you can't find a qualifying comp, and those are some of the purposes that a lot of people come to Grow South Dakota. We do have a 10-year balloon on our program, so we usually say, hey, check with the bank first, and if you don't qualify, come to our office. Probably our most active housing lending item is the down payment or closing cost assistance program. You do have to qualify income side for that. It's a 0% loan. It is repayable, but no payments until you either sell your home, refinance your home, sell your home, refinance your home, or you pay off your home mortgage, and then that is item, rather than that amount is due back to us. And so the purpose of it is to really lower the overall loan. So in other words, instead of having $80,000 loan, maybe you only have a $75,000 loan or a $70,000 loan, right? Helps lower the payment, are more likely to succeed for home ownership, etc. We do free homeowner education. We are HUD certified. We do have active business clients as well with 22. We also assist the food pantry. Is more most often as we can. And then I'm actually going to let Kelly Weaver talk a little bit about the weatherization, or the SBDC program.
So the Small Business Development Program is a federal program that's offered nationwide. We have 6 regional offices in South Dakota, 1 in Aberdeen, that serves 13 counties. Our services are free and confidential, so we work with people that are looking to start a business, buy a business, expand their business, better understand their business. Pretty much any stage of their business, we can assist them. We do that primarily through one-on-one counseling, but we also do business training. Last week, we did a training on understanding financial statements, which is really important for small businesses, but usually not their strong point. So that's the services that we offer, and it's we get a lot of referrals from the lenders, from chambers, from economic development organizations, but you know, a lot of people don't know about us until they need us. So if you hear somebody that's in that space, just refer them to us. And we don't do lending through the SBDC side. We help them get their business plan and financial projections together so they can maybe go to Grow or their own bank or other sources for lending. So it's a great partnership that way.
And just continuing on the weatherization program, so again, it makes your house more energy efficient for the goal as to how to keep that person in their home. So in other words, maybe it could be putting insulation in there or in the house, maybe it's new energy efficient appliance, etc. And then, you want to talk about Big Idea?
Big Idea celebrated its 15th anniversary last year. It's a business idea competition for high school students. We received more interest from out-of-state students last year than we have ever had. We ended up actually having 2 competitions, one in person for our in-state students and one virtual for out-of-state students. So that program continues to evolve. I continue to get emails even this summer from students that say, hey, please add my Irvine, California school to your list. I want to compete in the competition. So it's great to see that expansion. It happens in the fall. It's about a 1,000-word entry for the students, and then the judge and the top 8 finalists are our finalists, and we bring people on campus to Northern, have a speaker. We're working with the new Northern Innovation Center to bring in kind of a higher level keynote speaker this year, so that'll be exciting. The 30 I noted there are the 30 students that participated through Aberdeen Central, Aberdeen Roncalli, Groton. I don't think we had anyone from Frederick. So we continue to see participation throughout the state and beyond now. And in terms of the SBDC numbers, the $3.2 million, well, that's not money we give out. That's how we track our deliverables. There are funding that our clients have access through the help of, you know, our assistance with them, helping them get that loan, equity investment, their own equity that they put into it. So that's what that represents for the. And of course, not every person we work with is seeking financing, but that's a large majority of it.
And always looking for judges for Big Idea. So if you ever have a couple of free hours, it is interesting. If you want to review students' business plans and give them quality feedback of saying, how would this look better, or you did a really good job on that. And I'd say it's very rewarding of just going through that and sometimes seeing the innovation in small towns of saying, hey, that there are some possibilities, and hopefully, like Kelly said, of getting the next entrepreneur up and going.
So, any questions about any of the programs that we covered?
Sounds like you stay busy.
It's never, no day is ever the same, you know, it's always new things happening. We do have some of our board members that live here in Brown County. Jody Zuger is on our NESCAP board, and Beth Smith and Pat Halverson are on our NESDEC board. And for those of you that might be a little bit newer to Grow South Dakota consists of actually 3 legal entities. One by the name of Grow South Dakota, one by the name of Northeast South Dakota Community Action Program, which was our original entity, and then Northeast South Dakota Economic Corporation. So they all operate under the umbrella of Grow. So it's a little bit more simpler for interaction with the public, but when you hear these other acronyms, that's just our other legal entities that live underneath the Grow umbrella. We have some committee members, Daryl Ebach and Brian Schmidt, serve on our finance committees for a couple of the organizations. We do have 2 HUD-certified counselors on staff, which do the home buyer education that Mark mentioned. Actually, we have 4 staff now. We just hired another full-time person who will be operating primarily out of Aberdeen as a business loan coach. So with 3 full-time and 1 part-time student, or a part-time intern from Northern that works in our Aberdeen office, which is located in Malcha Plaza on the 2nd floor. We're co-located with the Aberdeen Development Corporation. A couple highlights for some of the programs. Mark mentioned the first mortgage and down payment assistance programs. Those, we continue to be successful in getting additional funding to continue on with that program. So every batch of funding comes with different limits and different amounts available, but and we've actually been pretty active as an organization nationally, where some of our staff are training staff in other states to run these kind of programs, or doing some of the qualifications for other states. GROW is just a very, very well-known national organization, or well-known nationally because of the great work that they do. Did you have something you were going to add? No? Okay. Business loans are for new and existing businesses. It's a pretty broad, they can fund just about all the needs that a business would have. So they're a great partner, and we partner with a lot of local lenders in doing that. They're not generally the primary or the only lender involved in it.
And a lot of our referrals comes from the bank. We're not in competition with the bank, but sometimes those hard-to-finance businesses like daycares or beauty salons, or sometimes it's just hard for the bank to make those type of loans, and that's kind of where we step in and try to get those good deals done into the business or into the community.
The digital literacy program is one of our newer programs, and I was trying to think. I was thinking it was just like brand new last year when we were here. I just remember being excited about it. And it's continued to grow, and we've added on the FCC connectivity grant. So GROW is an entity that can help people enroll into the Affordable Connectivity Program, and that's this handout here. So for qualifying individuals and households, they can get up to a $30 per month discount on internet service, or up to $75 a month discount for households on tribal lands, which of course we don't have those in Brown County. And also some discounts for equipment like a laptop, a computer, or a tablet. So really it's all about, how do we live and work in this world? It's all on digital. So when we have households that don't have that access, they're really disadvantaged. So this is a program that can help with that affordability. Olivia Lone out of our assistant offices is running this program, and that's her phone number and extension at the bottom. She's actually going to be in Aberdeen on June 29th, next Thursday, to do an open enrollment. So for people locally, they can come local and meet with somebody face-to-face to get enrolled into this program. And she's also running the digital literacy program, which is face-to-face workshops on how to use Facebook, or how to do a Zoom call, or how to use your cell phone, all those digital tools that people are, trying to learn how to use, especially those that didn't learn it in a job and didn't grow up with it from the day one they were born with a phone in their hand. And we also have another partner program called North Star, which is education. So if you need somebody who needs to learn more about how to use Word or Excel, there's a whole self-paced online education program through the North Star platform. So that's really some really great tools. We get calls a lot of times that, who does that kind of training? Well, nobody really does that kind of training anymore around here. The library has great programs occasionally. You can take a course at Northern, but there's not like a continuing program, so it's a great way to, if you got staff or community members that need those skills. We've talked about homebuyer education, financial literacy, all the programs as GROW started under the CAP organization was all about giving people skills to improve their station in life, and that's, if you look at all the programs that we do, that's really the bottom line for what the agency provides. And then the home improvement program, I think Mark covered that pretty well. So that's kind of what we got going on and have been up to in the last year.
Yeah, the only other thing I would add is, the money we do receive from the individual counties stay in those counties, because a lot of times we need to use that for match on our other programs.
Okay.
So the budget request for 2024 is $5,000, and as Mark mentioned, the match is really important because many of the loan programs, the down payment assistance, are coming from federal programs, which require the applying agency to provide a match. And that's where the county dollars are not other federal dollars that, we can use to match those programs. And then, even though it's used as match to bring in, to leverage that, it's still money that's used locally. We've got, somebody who has a need that can't be serviced by county programs or other programs that exist. That's a way to fill that gap.
Very good. We are just starting our budget hearings today, so good timing, and
Fresh on your mind, all right, it sounds great.
we'll add this to the list of requests and make our decision as we move forward.
All right, well, thanks for your time this morning, and feel free to refer people as needed, and we look forward to seeing you again next year.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate it.
Next up, public hearing for special liquor license permit.
Notice of hearing for a special liquor license permit. Notice is hereby given according to South Dakota Codified Law 35-2. A public hearing on the following liquor license application is set for the 20th day of June 2023 in the chambers of the Brown County Commissioners in the Courthouse Annex, Brown County, South Dakota, at which time any interested persons wishing to register complaint on their approval may appear. Stacy Gosman, doing business as Flying Pig, Aberdeen, South Dakota, at Assumption Farms, Section 30, Township 127 North, Range 63, Brown County, South Dakota. Special license effective July 29th, 2023.
Is there anyone here to speak to this license request? Any public input, objection?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Weiss to approve, second by Gage. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, next up, Lynn Brennan, South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance Member Services, overview of SDEAA.
Good morning.
Good morning, Lynn.
How are you all?
Good, you?
Good, thanks. So thank you for inviting me up here to just kind of go through coverages and benefits and stuff like that the risk pool has to offer. So I'm Lynn Brenn. I'm the Executive Director of the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance. I have worked with the risk pool on this side of the pool for about, just over 6 years now. Prior to that, I was about 16 years at Claims Associates doing claims for the risk pool, so I've got some pretty intimate knowledge of what the risk pool does, what its mission is, what its philosophy is, and stuff like that. Was thrilled to come over to this side of the risk pool. People are much happier on this side than on the claims side, so it's a better place to be. So I brought some information for you. On the left-hand side of your folder, you've got some information about our hotlines, the organizational charts. We're going to talk a little bit about all of those things in just a second. But on the right-hand side, there's a little program overview, but I've printed out a little PowerPoint. So we'll just kind of go through that printed out PowerPoint. It's behind a program overview, just to kind of give us a couple things to talk about a little bit. So a little bit about the pool. The pool was formed in 1987. It was formed in response to a hardening commercial insurance market. So basically what that means is commercial insurance was either unwilling or unable to provide coverage for public entities across South Dakota. They were really unprepared to handle some of the unique features and challenges that our public entities were facing. So their solution, rather than coming up with some loss control and risk management opportunities, was to simply either price the coverage so far that nobody could afford it, or simply just make it unavailable by making it insufficient. So the legislature came together, they determined that our public entities needed another option, and they created the enabling statutes, and all of the risk-sharing pools were born out of those enabling statutes. All the local pools were formed in 1987. You'll hear from Brad Wilson in a bit. The SDPA was formed liability only at first. Then a few years later, we added property. There were 7 founding entities in the liability portion, and then as the program has grown, we are up over 455 members right now. We have 57 of the 66 counties. We have about 85% of the local governments. We also cover cities, townships, conservation districts, and all of the special purchasing districts that you can think of. Our philosophy is really to be proactive versus reactive. You're going to see a lot, if you come to any of the county-sponsored, the SDACC sponsored events, the SDACO-sponsored events, SDML-sponsored events, you're going to see us there. Our goal is to let you guys know, to introduce you, to provide you as much access to all of the free training opportunities that we have, kind of give you the heads up of what's coming, because we have the opportunity to reach out to pools across the nation and see, hey, what's happening out on the coast, because one of the perks of living in the Midwest is things tend to start out there and make their way to the middle, and so we really have that unique opportunity to talk to those pools and say, hey, what are some solutions that work for you, or what have you tried that doesn't work, so then we know which way to steer our loss control and risk management opportunities and stuff like that. We are very financially secure. We credit our board of directors, and we'll talk about Mr. Ruiz in a second, with making sure that the risk pool is very conservative with the financial management of the pool, and then the administrative team, like myself, we can focus on the member services part, making sure that your coverages and services that are available take care of those needs and things that actually help you serve your citizens on a day-to-day basis. We are governed by a board of directors. There are 11 seats on our board. 2 of those are permanent seats, one held by the executive director, currently Chris Jacobson, of the Association of South Dakota County Commissioners, and the other one held by David Reese, currently as the SDML executive director. Mr. Weiss is actually the chairman of our board. He has been fantastic to work with, and I would say that even if he wasn't sitting here. But also, we have other county folks, city folks, and you'll notice if you look at where they're from, our board is situated across the whole state. So there is representatives from every part of the state on our board. So we can really get a good impression of what the needs are locally, not just locally as a state, but locally in each one of those communities. Speaking of being local, the service team that takes care of the SCPA is completely local. So your loss control folks, those are the people that come out and do loss control surveys and property valuation surveys, come out of Plankington and other areas. So they don't just have an office in Plankington, they all work out of their homes. So they are all over the state. Claims Associates does our claims administration, so your adjusters will come out of Sioux Falls, but we also have a team in Rapid City. And they might come over too. If we've had a bad storm on this side of the state, I've seen the guys come over from Rapid City to help out, and vice versa. Our Sioux Falls kids will go over to Rapid City to help out with them. The SDP's main office is situated in Fort Pierre, and the staff comes from, again, across the state. We have Jerry Cranbach over in Spearfish. If you've gone to any of the county conventions, you will have talked to Jerry. I can almost guarantee it. I come out of Harrisburg. We have Christina out of Sioux Falls, and then Becky Brunsing is, well, she's technically our newest member, but Jerry retired and then came back, so he's kind of the newbie, but he's been here longer. But anyway, so again, coming from all across the state, everybody is local. We've grown up here, we've lived here, we're here to serve you. That internal team slide, basically that's a quick overview of the organizational chart. So Christina Peterson is our deputy director. Becky Brunsing and Jerry Cranbach are our member services representatives, and Patron Nichols is our underwriter. Christina also does underwriting activities, so we've got a good balance there on the head of our leadership team, member services focus, because that has been my primary focus and role, and then Christina as the deputy director, really giving me some balance, kind of keeping me in check, making sure that I don't run away with the checkbook, just making sure that, again, we stay conservative and are able to continue to offer all of those services. Some of the benefits that you guys enjoy as for being members of the risk sharing pool, we have loss control surveys. So those loss control surveys are done every 3 years. Basically what happens is Safety Benefits comes out, they help identify any potential hazards or risks that the county may be facing, and then offer some recommendations on how to either eliminate or help mitigate that risk. That helps the pool in the long run because it sets us in a better position to either defend those claims or resolve those claims however is most appropriate, or avoid them altogether. So it really is, selfishly it helps us help you, but it absolutely helps you because if you can avoid some claims or make those claims be resolved a little quicker, it's going to take care of not only some financial resources, but your more important resource, which is your human resource, because your time is worth more than most dollars on the payroll, right? So we don't want to waste anybody's time, so if we can mitigate those claims by getting those loss control surveys out there, that's fantastic. We do save dollars with those loss control surveys, though, because we offer loss control credits. Super easy, so at the end of the survey, Safety Benefits will go ahead and make some recommendations for you. You guys just go ahead and respond to those recommendations, and then you qualify for your loss control credits for 3 years. If there's any recommendation that you're like, we don't even know where to start with this, or we can't get this done right away, you just need to contact Safety Benefits because we want to work with you, right? We want you to get those credits. We want you to recognize those risks and create some formulas and some strategies for making your communities a safer place. So we're going to work with you and provide those resources for you. Those property surveys that I kind of alluded to, those are conducted right now, 4 years, we are moving to a 4 to 5 year program. So some members will be on a 5-year rotation, some on a 4. Your last property survey was done in 2022, and I'll be in touch with Lynn to, we're going to work through some property valuations and stuff like that. And then your next one is actually slated for 2027, I believe. Actually 2026. So every 4 years, the reason we do property surveys is twofold. First, we want to make sure that your property values are appropriate, because while we do trend in between property surveys to make sure that you've got some inflation accountability in there, we just want to make sure that your values are appropriate. One, in the event of a loss, and two, because your contribution dollars are based on your property value. So we don't want you paying too little or too much, just the right amount for the coverage that you have. And secondly, we use those property surveys to identify any locations that you maybe own but don't have on your property schedule. And so then you just have the opportunity to be intentional about it. Do you want to cover them for property, or do you want to exclude them? Liability still applies to every location that you own, but it's just you need to protect that for some property damage coverage. So those are kind of the two goals of that property survey program. It helps us because we are able to make sure, again, that those values are appropriate, but then we don't have to use what commercial insurers use, co-insurance, as a method of protecting themselves against undervalued properties. We use property survey. So we feel it's a much more proactive approach to that property management portion of the pool. So the employment practices and the government practices hotline, these are my two favorite resources that we have. You each have a brochure in your packet. Gives you a little bit of information about those two opportunities. So the employment practices hotline was founded primarily in response to a recognition that employment-related claims were on the rise and they were a lot more expensive to address. So we felt if we could give our members an opportunity to get ahead of some of these employment-related issues, because really what it came down to a lot of times is local counsel is fantastic, but not every attorney can be an expert at everything, and employment law is particularly challenging sometimes. So we created these panels, these hotlines, to help answer some of those questions. They are intended to be a resource for local counsel, not a replacement. So for employment practices, every member has a $5,000 employment-related deductible, but the hotline allows our members to call the hotline and follow advice of counsel and waive that deductible. Basically what happens is, say you want to fire Lynn Bren, she's not the employee you thought she was, so you call the hotline and counsel's going to go through with you, okay, here's what you've established through your personnel or your handbook, here's what state law says, here's how we're going to take care of the situation, and they'll make sure that you get Lynn Bren fired the correct way or disciplined. Or maybe you want to hire Lynn Bren, but you're just not sure how to do that. Those are all questions that can absolutely be addressed through that hotline. A few years later, we recognized that there were a lot of questions about other things, not just employment-related matters. So the government practices hotline takes care of all the rest of the story, except criminal prosecution and bonds. We don't handle bonds, so we're not going to answer claims or questions about bonds. And we don't answer criminal prosecution because there's some immunities that are waived if we start giving you advice on that, and we don't want to take those immunities away from you, right? So those two hotlines, especially during, I don't know if you guys heard about this thing, we had COVID around here. Maybe you've heard about it? Yeah, it's like my second favorite thing to talk about. So during COVID, we had a lot of members thrown with this issue of, okay, we don't want anybody outside of their homes, but you have elections to run, so figure it out. We were able to bring together panel counsel to figure out how to keep our employees safe while still conducting elections in a fashion that was in compliance with all of the laws. So after we figured out COVID, then we got marijuana. And so that was a whole nother topic of conversation that we were able to push some information out to our members. Hey, here's how to manage medical marijuana with your employees. Here's how to keep your people safe. Here's how to do it correctly so that we're not infringing on anybody's rights. So these two hotlines just in the past 5 years have been crucial to keeping our members safe and making sure that they're able to continue those operations and doing it correctly. We continue to look for different ways that we can create new solutions to, again, those trends that we see coming. So during our member services visits, we are going to be talking with our members, hey, what are you guys seeing in the community? What resources do you need? What have you heard about that you think would be really awesome to have? And then we look for different ways that we can offer those solutions and those opportunities to our members. As The claims liaison, so some of our members have agents, some do not, so the county does not, and that's absolutely fine. So then, I really become your claim liaison, and I work with all of the members in situations where they need a claims liaison, because I know just a little bit about the claims process, and the coverage documents that we're working with. So really, it's an awesome opportunity for our members to have an access to kind of an inside resource if we've got a claim situation. And it may not even be a problem, it's just maybe a misunderstanding, a communication breakdown, stuff like that. So we act as your claims liaison. Talking about some of those innovative opportunities, we partner with LLRMI to provide law enforcement specific policies and procedures. For all of our jail folks, we have some jail training that is offered live through our partnership with Safety Benefits. But we have heard and we have found that offering the online sample policies and training opportunities through LLRMI for our law enforcement folks has been simply, I mean, it's fantastic. We've gotten so much feedback, so much positive feedback. We've had counties that's the number one reason they're even looking to come in, is because of access to that information for their sheriff's departments. And it just really, it gives you a good feeling to know that you're able to offer this information, that it's coveted and people desire it. So you know you're doing a good thing when you've got people calling. And actually, I have a sheriff's department calling me asking how they can just get in, even if the rest of the county isn't able to come over at this time. I'm like, let me see what I can do. We'll work on it. We talked a little bit about credit, so there's also a renewal credit that you guys qualify for. You have qualified for all of the credits on your current year's invoice. So you got the renewal credit, which means that Lynn turned her renewal packet in on time. You have the loss control credit because you followed up on those loss control recommendations. You have a loss ratio credit, which is fantastic because that means that you have your claims dollars and your contribution dollars are at a ratio that is 60% or less. That means you have great claims history. And then your law enforcement folks are adopting and training on those 12 model policies. So you've got solid loss control practices and procedures, and that's reflected in 3 of those credits that we talked about. Okay? And finally, thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. Thank you for being members of the Rich Pool. You've been a member since 1990. So clearly we've had a fantastic partnership. We've had a great run. There's some overviews of what coverages you have, what your limits are, deductibles, things like that. We do have a cyber liability program that is built into our general liability line of coverage. If at any time you guys thought about needing additional coverage, we would quote that separate on a standalone. We only have a couple members that do that. Through the cyber program, we offered people the opportunity to participate in Project Boundary Fence. Basically, that was a penetration testing analysis that was done. I think they got some really good participation in that program. We had offered a rebate program last year, and just by simply signing up for Project Boundary Fence and getting that report and seeing, hey, these are our vulnerabilities and here's some opportunities for correcting that. Enhanced Crime, you guys have the Enhanced Crime. That is a fantastic program also. The Enhanced Crime basically is a blanket employee dishonesty policy. So it also covers weird things like we've had a couple claims, one very recently with some bank fraud. So we've gotten some communications about changing banking information. The most recent was a payroll one, actually. A person, not an employee, pretended to be an employee, said, hey, I changed my bank information, can you just update this before payday? Yep, no problem, because it's Mike Lease, and he said to update it, so cool. But it wasn't Mike, and so Mike came into the payroll office the next day and said, where's my paycheck? It was then that they figured out that they had been hacked. They had this banking change request, so we turned that into the Enhanced Crime Program. It's a $1 million limit, no deductible on that coverage for our members. We're able to take care of that. Unfortunately, the money is gone. By the time they check the account, of course, it's empty and what have you. We've had other ones with vendors, much higher dollar than a one-time paycheck, $150,000 on the first request, $400,000 on the second. And again, the money is just gone. By the time they figure it out and they go to those accounts, it's just not there. So that crime program really is fantastic. It's a blanket policy, so it stands in the place of any required statutory bonds. So like our sheriff's bond, our auditor's bond, finance officers, all of those are satisfied with this enhanced blanket coverage, but it also covers all of your full-time, part-time employees and your appointed and elected officials. So even though they're not required to be bonded, if there's anything employee dishonesty related, then that kind of picks that up. Not kind of, it just does. We talked about credits. The county received over $14,000 in credits on their invoice this past year. So that looks great on you guys because it means you're doing the work that needs to be done to get those credits and you're earning those, and that's tax dollars back in your own budget. So thank you. Do you guys have any questions for me? I talk fast. I could talk about this stuff all day, but I respect you've got other things to do today, and Brad's going to talk with you about workers' compensation, so that's probably way more exciting than what I thought. It's not.
Awesome quick overview.
Thank you.
So really appreciate that. Touch just briefly on the annual safety conference too, if you would.
Yes, so we have, every year we have an annual, well, first I'm gonna take it one step further.
Sorry.
No, that's fantastic. So we have safety awards. Every year, between the two risk-sharing pools, we give safety awards, and you can apply for those awards. The information's out on the websites right now. Those are awarded during the annual county convention and then the city convention, and then again at the safety conference. So in November of every year, though, we have an annual safety conference. Every other year, this year happens to be one of the years we actually come together with the state of South Dakota and Associated School Boards of South Dakota, and we do a joint safety conference. So tons of training opportunities, lots of good information, fantastic speakers that are brought in. We are finalizing most of that for this year and already starting to look ahead for next year. So this year it's in Pierre. It is November 3rd and 4th. So it's Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning, and yes, wonderful, wonderful program. Save the date is out on the website. Once the agenda is finalized, then our website will be updated with that agenda. We're just, like I said, finalizing some speakers now, but usually very good turnout. We have Thanksgiving dinner for our members on the Wednesday night, so that's by demand. Brad insists on having Thanksgiving dinner. The one time we didn't, we had to go find him Thanksgiving. He doesn't demand it, but it's been tradition. So beyond the safety awards, it's really just a great opportunity to network. These conferences offer you guys that opportunity to get together with people who are in similar roles but across the state. And that networking is really going to be invaluable. It offers you, again, that opportunity to talk to people. Maybe they're seeing things that you're just starting to encounter, and they like us reaching out to other pools. They might have some information for you, some solutions that you didn't really think about ahead of time. So.
Last thing, and thank you very much, very comprehensive and stuff. I asked our sheriff, and he's got plenty of other things to do and stuff, but just to make sure, you know Dave?
Hi, Dave. I'd like to meet you here. This is a good place to meet you.
Yeah, but just to touch on, expand a little bit, you talked about LMRI and the training opportunity and stuff, and
yes.
The law enforcement activities and the jail activities are huge exposure.
Yes.
And the state does not have a training program or certification for jail personnel.
Correct.
And that's one of the job titles that has the most turnover and stuff. So
absolutely.
the training opportunities that you and we provide and scheduling and the flexibility is very valuable to us and other members. If you want to talk about that for just a second.
Yeah, sure.
Go on, but it's really important.
We offer that through our partnership with Safety Benefits. So Matt Peterson will come out for jail-specific training. He will come out and he can do, it's about a 40-hour a week training, or 40-hour week long training. I believe that is offered more in stages. It's not like you have to be there from hour 1 to hour 40 to get the full program, because he recognizes that you can't get your entire team in one room for that 40 hours, because you have a staff that you need to take care of, you have a community that you need to service. So really what they do is they focus on the policies and procedures that are reinforced through LLRMI. They're created by LLRMI based on current jurisdictional trends and also statutes that are in place. So they're constantly looking at any new case law that comes down, making those updates, and then they're also reaching out and looking at, okay, from a trend standpoint, what are these guys going to be looking at? What are they going to be facing in the future? We are also looking at some other opportunities to partner with some of our other local entities to put together some ABLE training, so active bystander training, and then also some DART simulators, which is kind of the VR version of training. So we're looking at offering some of those services. We just have to look at pricing and then find communities that would be able to host those opportunities for us. to make sure that they're accessible to all members and not just, I mean, we don't just want to keep them in Pierre because that's not practical for everybody. We don't want to keep them in Sioux Falls because that's certainly not practical for our friends on the west side of the state and stuff like that. So, yep, Safety Benefits has done a fantastic job of making sure that those training opportunities, not just the regular online, but especially our law enforcement folks have access to that LLRMI, those sample policies and procedures, and then again, this jail training has taken off and it has been phenomenal.
Good to hear. We'll probably have to talk some more.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Mike has my information. I can leave you, I have this business card that you can have. It has all of my contact information on the back.
Thank you very
Call,
much.
email, text anytime you need.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So like everything else, there's lots of complex issues that you're dealing with, both with procedures as well
Yes.
as trends, how to handle confidential information that you have to for people that you have in your custody, and just all kinds of things like that. So.
Yep, and all of those topics are addressed, if not within the online training, but certainly touched on by Matt Peterson and just reinforced after, you know, they come out of, like, law enforcement officers out of the academy, some of our jail folks, corrections officers, you know, after they have their initial training, then Matt can come in and really reinforce a lot of that initial training. And a lot of it is just reinforcing the why. Why do we do these things? And what does it matter? This is why it matters. This is why we do these things. This is how you are going to be able to make your job a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable, keeping people safe. Yeah. Anything else?
Very good. Good presentation.
Great, thank you. Well, if you need us anytime, my card is in there, the org chart is in there, we're online, anytime. Give us a call, shoot us a text, email, whatever you need.
You bet.
Great.
Thank you, Lynn. Appreciate your time.
Well done.
All right, next up, Brad Wilson. Morning, Brad.
Good morning. Lynn is right. Workers' compensation is not nearly as much exciting as cyber and employee dishonesty and all the fun things that go along with that, but I'll do my best. So, I just have, actually, Lynn was able to get my slides up on the screen there, and I guarantee this, it looks thick, but it's not going to take a whole lot of time to go through. I will be mindful every time, because there's a lot of overlap between a lot of the programs that we provide, from the loss control and safety conference and all of those types of things. So what I really wanted to do, what Lynn just asked me to come in and just do a little overview of, you know, really what the STML Work Comp Fund is, who we are and what we do for the county, and yeah, you know where to find it, Mike. So again, I'm Brad Wilson. I'm the administrator for the STML Workers' Compensation Fund, and again, you know, I mean, very familiar with Brown County. Worked with for a very long time. The next slide is what our mission statement. Again, we were born the same way that the FCPA was. You know, the statutes that allow you to pool your risk sharing with other public entities. There we go. Yeah. All right. And so basically, bottom line is that what we do, we were created for you, by you. That's all we do. We don't write workers' compensation coverage for private businesses. It's all cities, counties, public entities, which includes the fire and ambulance services as well. Next slide. So we're endorsed by your county association, County Commissioners Association, and the South Dakota Municipal League. So you are a sponsoring organization. We attend all of your conferences, all of your district meetings as much as possible. We try to be available across the state. Just like Lynn, I cut out my staff out of there, but Gary Drews, who's a Pennington County Commissioner, he's our Rapid City Road Warrior. Doug Kirkus, who formerly of Safety Benefits. Between the three of us, we're covering the state, and we attend, if we're not all together, at least one of us are trying to attend all of your county association meetings. Next slide is our management team. There's our board of trustees, similar to the STML, or to the SDPAA, a 9-member board of trustees, 3 county representatives, which Jim Schmidt out of Lincoln County, Susan Kipke is a new trustee, Davison County auditor, and then of course Chris Jacobson, your executive director, is on the board as well. We also have a local municipal trustee, Andrea Schwann, took over for Carl Alberts as a new trustee as well. So Brown County's pretty well, and your county's pretty well represented on the board of trustees. Actually, Mike Grosek out of Webster, you've got another one up here in this area too. So, and again, all the service providers, we're all from South Dakota. We all live here. I'm from Burke, South Dakota myself, born and raised, and most everyone who is working for you has lived, worked, grown up in South Dakota. Next slide, the SDMO Work Comp Fund. We have 511 members, 250 of those are municipalities, cover all 66 counties in the state. So it's nice to be able to go to the convention and say, we cover you all, what I'm talking about applies to everyone. And so great support from the South Dakota County Association, always have been. I think the last 2 counties we signed up were in 2013, so for 10 years we have covered all 66 counties. We cover nearly all of the conservation districts, basically the ones we don't cover, the ones that don't have enough payroll or employees, maybe they contract out their services, they don't really have a need for workers' compensation. We cover 282 fire departments, volunteer and paid in the state, 99 ambulance services, which that all put together is about 30,000 employees and volunteers, nearly 9,000 firefighters and ambulance volunteers, and then when you throw in all of the sheriffs and police departments and paid departments, over 13,000 first responders. So just a little history. This year, 2023, our rates were unchanged. We are doing a flat rate renewal, which included a 25% renewal credit. Lynn has kind of talked about these credits. Same operating thing. When Lynn sends in her, which we're going to start in August, we'll start our renewal process for 2024. But you get a 25% credit just for that being turned in on time. We enter it into our system. So it's an incentive. We don't wait to the end of the year and say, okay, all the good people get dividends, all the bad people, you get cut out. That's not the way we do it. We want everybody to get these credits, so we do everything possible to make it so that you are getting those credits and qualify for those. The loss control credit, again, every 3 years. Your last loss control survey was in 2020. There'll be safety benefits will be back out in 2023. And again, once you comply, and Brown County's always complied, you've always gotten a credit, there's never been any issues. So once you qualify, then you receive that 9% credit for 3 more years. And then your return on equity, that's just basically a combination of the larger you are compared to everyone else in the pool, and how long you've been with us. Each year, yours goes up about $800 to $1,000 a year, just automatically, just for renewing your coverage. So over the last 4 years, our rates have actually went down 10 years, and I've been looking back, and I've been talking about this when I'm speaking at conferences. You're paying less for your workers' compensation coverage now than you did 17 years ago. And, you know, it is a soft work comp market, but that isn't the only reason why you're paying less. Our insurance rates gyrate all the time. Ours have just consistently been steady or reduced. That's by design. That's the philosophy of the board, of these pools, and the whole reason for their existence is to keep your budget stable as much as possible. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But that's one of the number one things: stable rates and predictability. So let's talk about what exactly is workers' compensation. What are we providing for you? This isn't property, it's not liability. Workers' compensation protects the county against work-related injuries. So this is about your employees. Employee gets injured, they have medical bills, they have lost time. That's what workers' compensation covers. Now, I'm just going to say, I'm going to get into the weeds of this, that's time or place, but you know, why do you have to have workers' compensation? Because it's required. Well, it's not technically required by law. No one's going to come out and fine you if you don't have it. But if you have a work-related injury and you operate and you qualify under the statutes, you're on the hook for the benefits whether you have the coverage or not. So by the coverage, it's less expensive to do it that way than to pay out work-related injury claims. Next slide, please. So a lot of times it's easier to define what workers' compensation is not. It's not unemployment insurance, not disability or life insurance or health insurance, not Obamacare, not a government entitlement program, and not an employee benefit program, and I've added recently, it's not a retirement plan. But the first 4, the unemployment, disability, life, and health, those are elements of the benefits that workers' compensation provides. So when you get your unemployment rate increase, that's not us. You get your health insurance rate increase, that's not us. We have nothing to do with those types of coverages. Chapter 62, the workers' compensation statutes in South Dakota, every work comp provider, it doesn't matter whether it's the SDML Work Comp Fund, it doesn't matter if it's another commercial insurance carrier, if you provide work comp coverage to a business or an employer in South Dakota, you have to provide these benefits, no questions asked. So the employer can't say, I want that one but not that one, just give me the medical but forget the disability, or I don't want 2/3 of the disability, I only want a third. You don't have a choice, and we don't either. So medical, we provide $1 coverage for medical bills that are related to a work-related injury or caused by a work-related injury, no deductible. That is one thing that some commercial carriers will put a deductible on those. Maybe you pay the first $500, whatever it is. Every time I've ran the calculations on that, the little premium savings that you get does not outweigh the deductible. So that's kind of a misnomer. We do that no deductible, and there's no limit. And that also is by South Dakota. You can say, well, we only want $2 million of coverage. Can't do that. South Dakota, the legislature in statute says there's statutory limit. There's no limit in South Dakota. So, I mean, a claim could be $20 million over the course of 40 years, and and it would be compensable. So, disability, that actually goes up on July 1st. I tried to look up the numbers. Department of Labor, at least where I couldn't find it, haven't released it, but you know, the maximum weekly wage is at $9.75 if someone reaches that, minimum $4.88. Rehab, if you are, say you're in the highway department, you get injured to a point where you can't go back to work in the highway department, but you can be retrained in IT. Well, if you're willing, if that employee is willing to be retrained, workers' compensation will pay for the schooling and continue the lost wages until they're able to be retrained and put back to gainful employment in another occupation. And the death benefit is now to $10,000. The legislature kind of kicked that up to try and keep up with inflation over the last, well, it's been probably the last 5-10 years now, but death benefit of $10,000. So that's really the meat of what workers' compensation in South Dakota, that's what is provided for your employees when they get injured. So, next slide is, well, who does it cover? Who exactly is covered? And it really seems like a simple question, and it is. I still get a lot of questions, but your employees, elected officials like yourselves, appointed officials, volunteers. And I normally put a question mark behind volunteers because that's one of those, well, we can if we decide to, but we don't have to. Brown County does. You have 111 listed. I looked back, I think it was in the January minutes, Lynn had, I think it was Lynn or maybe Eric, I'm not sure, but whoever had presented those for approval. But 111 listed for 2023, and there's your CERT team, your chaplains, your Citizens Corps, your dive team, and Fair Board. All common, you know, emergency management, or emergency service volunteers are a lot of the ones that we see, public entities. The legislature created a statute to allow public entities to cover volunteers. Most commercial carriers will not cover volunteers. They could by that statute, but they just don't want to because it's an unknown. You've got to know who they are, what are they doing, are they qualified, what are they bringing, you know, for pre-existing conditions, what's their background and training. So insurance companies just generally don't. That's why the legislator made it possible for public entities to be able to say, you know, we want to cover our volunteer firefighters, we want to cover our ambulance, our emergency management, you know, our storm trackers, those types of things. And so that's very common. You know, do you want to cover every volunteer that says, hey, I want to help the county? No, and you're not under any obligation to do so. For example, in Burke, in 2019, we had a tornado. The city of Burke had every volunteer, and there were lots of them. My mom lived right on Main Street. We were right in the heart of the damage. Fire hall down, everyone had to check in at the fire hall. They kept track of everybody, but they did not cover anybody because it's just not feasible. So emergency situations, flooding, natural disasters, you can, but you're under no obligation to do so. Emergency services, very, very common.
That's why we recognize them, put them in the minutes.
Yes.
These are,
right.
documented people that are covered because of the responsibilities that they've accepted.
Exactly. So like what Mike is saying there, so it's a two-step process, and it's basically as the commission or whoever's in charge has to say, we know who our volunteers are, and they bring it to you. Second step of the process to comply with the statute is, yes, we want them, we want to cover them. So that's, and I remember years ago, because, you know, like you have a lot of volunteers. Pennington County has a lot of volunteers, and a lot of them, you know, it's hard to keep track. And so I asked the director of the Department of Labor at the time, I said, so what happens, you know, the question is, what happens if they come on in between meetings, we don't have them approved yet? And I asked him, I said, well, you know, what do we do? And he's like, and his answer was, the statute is very clear, which tells me, walks it right down the line, it's very clear, he says, follow the statute. And so that just means, who are they, and we want them. So, and you're complying with that perfectly. So,
thank you.
Next, so let's drill down a little bit on who. Okay, so employees. So employees are all paid employees. Day one, minute one, they are covered automatically under for work-related injuries. You don't have to let us know. You don't have to tell us in approval. If they're on your payroll, they're covered. It doesn't matter if they're full-time, part-time, a temporary, or a seasonal. they could work for 1 day. That 1 day, they're covered from the minute they start. Now, you also cover your election workers. A little bit different deal. You may not run through payroll. They're maybe, they're 1 day or, very, very temporary. But Department of Labor said yes, just because they're not run through payroll, you're covering just like an employee. You cover them as an administrative or clerical. Of course, the commissioners and elected officials, and then minors. There's no minimum age. You could hire a 6-year-old to, empty garbage cans, and they got injured. I mean, there's no minimum that excludes you from coverage under work comp. So just be mindful of child labor laws. Child labor laws have been directly at workers' compensation. Oh, no, exactly. Did I just skip that?
You volunteer.
Just be aware of federal child labor laws, state child labor laws when you do hire anyone under the age of 18. Benefits, there are a lot of things that the SDPA and the FML Work Comp Fund share as far as benefits. Some of them that are specific to work comp. Of course, the stable rates, but your fund modifiers, that's based on your work injury history. I mean, just like any type of insurance, it's a modifier that the more injuries you have and the more they cost, the more you're going to pay for your coverage. Vice versa, less claims you have, less they cost, less you're going to pay. And so that's the incentive. That's the thing that you can control. The employer's liability limit, please don't confuse that with what the work comp limit is. It's something totally different. It never comes into play. But we do offer a limit higher than what you would get with a commercial insurance carrier. Just wanted to point that out. We have 3 grant programs. We ran out of our grant funds before the end of March this year. And so the Stryker EMS grant, like the Aberdeen, Fire and Rescue, has taken advantage of their ambulance power load and cot equipment. There's a SAW grant for cutting water pipes, and then the trenching and confined space equipment, which those aren't a high frequency type of claim, but they are. I'll just say there's deadly claims, and so that's one of those things we want to provide. Whatever gas testers, air testers, trench boxes. If you're doing your own, trenching and confined space entry, anything that helps keep your employees safe qualifies for that grant.
Those are really good programs.
Yeah, and that one's really taken off too. We started out with the Stryker out of Van Houston, and then the trenching. That one's really gaining traction.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We also, for your volunteer firefighters, ambulance, and I realize the county, cover them under the county, but if you have a family member or maybe you're on a department, we do have in addition to that $10,000 death benefit that work comp pays, we purchase a separate accidental death and dismemberment policy that pays $50,000 to the family or the estate of the volunteer firefighter. So, just locally here, I mean, if you're on the Aberdeen Fire Department, of course they're paid, but if you're on the Aberdeen Rural, we cover them. You get that automatically. If a service was to provide that, last time I checked, if they were to provide that to their service, it's about $1,000 a premium, so that's free. And then the thing we're probably most proud of, just like the government and employee practices hotline, one of our newest and greatest benefits that we've offered in the last few years is a first responder assistance program. I'm not going to go, I could do a whole presentation on that, but basically we have a deep interest in the mental health of our first responders. I was on the mental health task force for first responders, and what really came out of it, we were already working on this actually before that even started, but the state came up with a program that they're funding through the Firefighters Association and another grant program through, I think DCI is administering that. But this program, it's basically an EAP program. You have an employee assistance program. We're providing one for your first responders, your sheriff's department, your jail, your dispatchers, your emergency management departments, all paid volunteer, fire, ambulance, and their families. So it's a full EAP program, but what we also do is that we'll help Connections EAP out of Rock Valley, Iowa, is the provider. They will help coordinate critical incident stress debriefing. So you have, just say you have a multi-fatality incident, and, actually Aberdeen has helped us out quite a bit this area in going to smaller areas. That's where we have the need for those debriefings, where they don't have peer-to-peer groups. But Connections will say, hey, we had something happen over in this area. Hey, Aberdeen, can you come help us? Or hey, Brown County, does your critical debriefing team, can they help us? So we can help coordinate all that through their program, and also it applies to their families. So it's not just for the first responders themselves. There's no claim forms, there's no enrollment. basically, if you are here, if you're on the payroll or you're a volunteer on a roster, we cover, they just automatically get it. So, and it also doesn't matter when the incident happened.
Mhm.
It could have happened 20 years ago, and for whatever reason it's triggering now, all that matters is they're with us. So, going next, we're going to look at, so our rates this year were flat, and I'm not, I don't think I'm taking a big leap here, but my initial analysis, looking at 2024, we're probably going to have, probably not going to have a flat renewal again, which means no change in your rates. And so, that will be actually decided or approved in July. And I would say, I might even throw out there, I feel like a weatherman here. You might even see a little bit of a rate decrease, but I'm not going to say that for sure. But I could pretty confidently say that there will be no rate increases. So at that point, as far as rates, it should be flat. 2023, here's how your work comp renewal breaks down. So there's all the credits that you received, everything from, just a size discount to the renewal, all of those. So you wrote a check, or Lynn wrote a check for $155,000, and that's with a fund modifier, and that's the one that's based on, your injury history of a 1.2. So looking ahead at 2024, so actually the next slide is going to be your modifier, because that's what really controls it. As you can see, you're kind of at a high point on your modifier. 10 years ago, you were at a super low point, one of the lowest in the group. But if you look at 2024, that's going to come down 10%. So that just means that things that have happened in the last 4 years ago are starting to fall out of the period and being replaced by new things that have happened, which is good. So next year, 2024 renewal, your modifier is going down 10% to a 108. As long as 2023 still continues to be uneventful, I see that to continue to decrease back down to kind of your normal area. So looking at 2024, you're looking at a 10% decrease in your fund modifier, 0% or a flat rate renewal. All things being equal, it's no pay raises, no changes in anything. This is going based off of what your payroll is and how they're classified to sheriff's department and highway and whatever. That equates to about a little over $17,000 decrease in what you'll pay for your work comp next year. So, and it's a little bit more than 11%, and that's because your equity credit goes up every year no matter what. So,
Safety pays.
yeah, so, budget purposes, Lynn, I got you taken care of, so. And then just touch on just a few things. I mean, these are all the other things, the free risk management services. Lynn's already touched all of them, but I just put together some numbers on those, on like the safety training videos. Brown County is a top user of those online safety trainings and online streaming videos. 2021, there was over 100. Last year, 2022, almost 700. Year to date this year, there's been 624 classes or videos downloaded, attended, whatever. I just say attended is probably the best way. So yeah, Brown County is very active, and that's why your modifier is usually lower, is because of that participation. Safety conference you touched on. Sorry, didn't mean to correct Lynn, but this year it's actually November 1st and 2nd in Pierre. And Brown County consistently, to qualify for the gold and platinum level awards, you have to have at least one person there. Brown County always has at least one person there. And usually, most entities don't send 10 people. That's not something you send a bunch of people. You send 1 or 2, and you kind of rotate those each year so that maybe new employees that come in will attend that. Safety awards, you've received 29 safety awards over the years. Platinum, gold is, basically you're doing everything right, and then the platinum level means your loss ratio is showing it. So when you have the platinum level, that's when both with Lynn, with the Public Assurance Alliance, and the Work Comp Fund, your loss ratio is under 60%, and you've received 4 of those, including last year in 2022. So those will be awarded at the county convention for 2023 in September. We're in Sioux Falls, right? Okay, yeah. The annual MSHA training, that's another thing that Safety Benefits puts on, and for your county workers, it's a requirement to get 7 refresher hours for the Mine Safety Hazards Act, I believe it's called, and you consistently have over 20 people that attend that. So that's great. I mean, that costs you about $100 an employee if you had to go. If you weren't our member, that cost you about $100. At least it used to. Might probably more now. $100 to send them to that required training. So all the different things that are available, and there's really actually even many more of safety training topics. So just summarizing in the next slide. We're member-owned. We're here for you. That's all we do. We're all local, and we're just trying to keep your rates stable. provide you things that you can't get from other commercial insurance carriers, and that's the one thing I've heard, this past year, they're like, well, so are these pools still viable? I mean, they still, they had a reason, they had a purpose 35 years ago. Well, is that reason still apparent? It's more apparent than ever right now, because there are things that commercial carriers will not provide that we provide, and the other things that we provide is stability. We aren't hot on public entities for 5 years and say, there's a lot of weird stuff going on there, we're gonna back away and we're gonna up our prices. You can look back at what you paid, it's very stable, financially strong, and everything we do is geared towards you. We don't care about grocery stores, but what's going on in the grocery store market's not what we're doing. All we care about is what's going on in public entities in South Dakota. And all of these extra benefits and all these extra services are created and geared just for you, and you can't get them anywhere else. So we're here to serve you. So thank you. Brown County's been with us for 34 years, since, actually as of October 1st, 1989, so you're in your 34th year of coverage. Your member number is 103, so out of 511, that's pretty early on. So there, thank you. Any questions, anything that I didn't touch on? I always steal this from Jody at Spearfish. She's one of our other trustees. They have a sticker they put on candy bars, but I just love, and they have a really good safety program. Just do it the safe way, do it the right way, do it every day. And that really starts with you as a commission, your support, and you always have been very supportive of the safety programs, and we thank you for that, because really that's what makes these pools really do well. So, any questions?
Well, we appreciate the partnership and relationship that we have with both entities. It's very worthwhile, and you can see by the numbers it pays to go on. So appreciate that.
Yeah, we thank you. And from my board, I'll say from the board of trustees, it's not just me, but the whole board of trustees, thank you. And just from our standpoint, we love working with all of you, with Lynn and with HR, and it's love attending your conferences and being part of that. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Brad. Hopefully it'll be prime rib next time. I tell that story all the time.
If you're paying, it might be here. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
All right, next up, discuss bid for surplus property. As you all know, we got one legitimate bid last week that we opened, and we are waiting for some advice from the state's attorney on what our potential options will be, and we'll be discussing those later today, and hopefully come back with some action next week, possibly depending on what we find out and what the timeline looks like. So more to come. Anything else to add, Ross?
You guys want to just table it a week? I think you probably need a motion.
I think we'll postpone it a week, yeah.
Okay.
Entertain a motion to postpone it for a week, that way it's in the part of the record. Okay, motion by Gage. Second by Denner. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The reason we postponed is we were told at our spring workshop, if you table something, you have to take it up again during that same meeting. So we'll postpone it. So that was part of the Robert's rules that we learned.
We learn as we go.
Pays to go to those meetings. Next up, Rachel Kipley, Fair Manager. Morning, Rachel.
Morning. Got two contracts for your consideration. One from UTA, it's the same kind of language we've had from them in the past for that Blanco Brown opener that we released last week. And then the second one is our Midco contract to advertise with them. These are for you guys. I apologize, I didn't have those contracts to you earlier. I got them late Friday. So. These are just invitations, and Dwayne is on the foundation board, so he can tell you more about that, but they're having a ribbon cutting here in July on the 11th, and you're more than welcome to come at 1 p.m. So yeah, I guess I would ask if you would consider approving the two contracts in front of you. The Midco one's a little over $10,000. They do sponsor our Thursday night concert, and then we do a significant amount of social media commercials and things through that. It is a little less than last year. The advertising committee is kind of exploring some other areas of marketing and promotion, so.
Those are your recommendations?
Yes.
Vote.
We have a motion by Weiss. Second by Feldheim to approve the two fair contracts, one with UTA, the other one with Midco. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. And then, I would ask for a really quick exec for contracts if you so stop it.
I think that works. Now would be a good time.
Want that now?
Yes, please.
Move.
Motion by Weiss. Second by Denner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are in exec.
It'll be less than 3 minutes.
All right, lights back on. We're out of exec. No action as a result.
Did you do the other two?
We haven't yet.
No.
We'll go back and do that for the other two. Okay. All right, brings us to the end of our regular scheduled items, now consent calendar.
Approval of the general meeting minutes from June 13th. Drew did catch one thing this morning that I did amend, so we're being amended.
I'll move it. Second.
Motion by Denner, second by Weiss. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Claims and payroll.
Move.
Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
HR report.
Move. Second.
Motion by Gage, second by Weiss. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Claim assignments.
Move.
Motion by Weiss.
Second.
Second by Feldheim. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Lease agreement.
Move. Second.
Motion by Denner, second by Weiss. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Any other business come before the Brown County Commission this morning? We've had a request to go into executive session for contracts, legal, and personnel. Carl?
A real minor thing, but, I'm Carl Perry.
Morning, Carl.
House of Representatives. This has nothing to do with that, but on Thursday night at 6 o'clock at Wiley Park, there will be a Brown County, Republican barbecue, and, so want to make sure that you guys know about it. Tickets can be, got from, Rich, Hilgeman from out of Town and Country, or from Commissioner, Dinner. So, come if you can. If you can't make it, then don't come.
Yeah.
No.
All right, thank you, Carl.
The very top.
All right. Nothing else?
Right, is that what you said?
What's that?
You said executive now again?
Yep, now we're going back into exec.
Well, it was nice seeing you both.
Good to see you. Motion by Gage to go into exec. Is there a
Second.
Second by Feldheim. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Okay,
Motion
sorry, I
carries.
missed
We
that.
are back in exec. All right.
I haven't even looked at it.
Lights back on. We're out of exec. No action as a result. Anything else to come before the Brown County Commission this morning?
No, I guess,
We have budget hearings. Oh, I'm sorry.
what was that, you're from budget hearing?
Yes.
Okay. I just had to clarify what they were sitting in there for.
All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn, so we can, motion by Weiss.
Second.
Second by everybody. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are